After a 5-year term from the outgoing government, former cricket star Imran Khan won Pakistan's general election. Khan has vowed to eliminate corruption and bring big change to Pakistan. What should be expected from this popular politician? Khan's party won 115 seats out of 272 in the National Assembly, but that wasn't enough to form a majority government. On Saturday, the PTI sounded confident about the next session of the Assembly in mid-August, declaring that they have the support to form a government. Will the coalition be able to effectively carry out the new Prime Minister's agenda? In opposition before this election, Khan was a strong critic of Nawaz Sharif and his handling of Chinese investments. However, he has since said that he was neither against Chinese projects nor the China-Pakistan economic corridor. What does this election mean for the future relationship between China and Pakistan? The US questioned the process of the election and delayed acknowledging the result. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has begun scaling back training and education programs for dozens of Pakistani military officers in the United States, a hallmark of bilateral relations in the past decade. On Saturday, Imran Khan made a televised speech saying he would seek more balance in the two countries' relationship. Will Pakistan move away from the US? What would that mean to China and Russia?
As Pakistan celebrates its Independence Day, the country's new government is transitioning to power. Imran Khan, the newly elected Prime Minister, is considered to be a force for change. He will be under pressure to fight corruption, help the middle class flourish, create jobs by stabilizing the economy, and ensure justice for all levels of society. What are the political hurdles in this formidable challenge for the new government? How will Khan lay out his foreign policy to deal with Pakistan's neighbors and the wider Muslim world? And how might China-Pakistan relations evolve in the changed political landscape? To discuss these issues and more, today I'm very happy to be joined in the Beijing studio by Rong Ying, Vice President and Senior Research Fellow with the China Institute of International Studies, and Zung Ahmed Khan, Research Fellow at Tsinghua University. That's our topic. This is a dialogue. I'm Yang Ray. Ms. Zong, welcome to Dialogue. My first question is very much about domestic politics of Pakistan. Of course, we are talking about the results of the campaign. Now, clearly, the newly elected Prime Minister failed to form a clear majority. A coalition government means automatically that he will not make effective decisions instantly. Instead, he will rely on power allies. So what do you think of the future?
Well, I would actually like to say that having a coalition government, and especially having the coalition government in 3 provinces, can be a very interesting and a very positive situation for Pakistan. The reason why I say that is, for example, in Balochistan, the BAP, whose leader is Akhtar Mengal, has been a Baloch nationalist. And given the fact that he's willing to form a coalition with the federal government means that someone who was initially a Baloch nationalist wants to be directly affiliated with the central government. This kind of a situation leads to perhaps a little bit of compromise, a little bit of give and take, but it really results in inclusion of supposedly marginalized or sectors or factions or political parties that were not so much part of the mainstream. So I see this as a very positive indicator of what the PTI represents and what it aims to achieve.
Does the campaign success of Imran Khan, the newly elected Prime Minister, indicate the end of a two-party political landscape for Pakistan, the PPP and the Pakistan Muslim League, and Nawaz is over?
Well, I think it's hard to say, but at least so far we have a kind of a new, developed new dynamic. There's the 2 old parties, the PPP and also based in Sindh, and the PML, Nawaz Sharif, primarily based in Punjab, and of course the PTI, which is now growing in strength and influence. So the fact that PTI, led by Imran Khan won the election shows that I think the dynamic is the domestic politics is changing, and as Ms. Zoom is saying that we are going to see a new and interesting dynamic, and how it's going to play out, it all depends on how these forces, I mean, kind of can strike a deal by give and take. But more importantly, I think it all depends on, in the end, the other forces that has been always playing a very important role in shaping the domestic politics of Pakistan.
I wonder if we can take a look at the far broader picture of world politics in terms of the electoral politics, like the unexpected campaign success of Emmanuel Macron in France. He comes from a third party instead of the traditional two parties of this Fifth Republic of France. Neither did Donald Trump come from a
conventional background.
Right, a very prominent political background. These guys, the political black horses, came from nowhere, and yet they gained so much prominence instantly. Of course, there must be some similarities. I wonder if you can single out some of them and take a deeper look.
Well, if I may add that Imran Khan, or the PTI, is perceived as a party and a man who came out of nowhere. You know, there was a two-party system, and all of a sudden you have this man who's somewhat sweeping the election. But that is also a misconception, because Imran Khan has been in politics for over 20 years. He started with that one seat in the National Assembly, and then slowly in the previous tenure he secured the KPK, which is a very difficult province as well.
Probably Khan is an exception because of his prominence as a cricket superstar. He has stolen the spotlight for years because he's a sports star.
He does have a different kind of appeal, and I think that's one of the, apart from, okay, so let's not say that he is a cricket superstar and that's why he was able to win this election. You can only come this far with this kind of shine or this kind of prominence. But the fact that Imran Khan was re-elected in the KPK, which is a province that is always picky about who they re-elect, means that they performed very well. Plus, if you look at his international appeal or his appeal as a superstar, then it can be a big advantage to Pakistan. Already, he has been invited by the governments of Afghanistan as well as Iran. One of the, I'm not sure the name, but one of the cricket captains of India has said that I want to come and attend his ceremony. This kind of an appeal and this kind of a presence for a leader of a country like Pakistan that is seeking to come back into a better international limelight is very important. So it can serve as an advantage, his personality.
Are you impressed by the charisma of Mr. Imran Khan?
Oh, indeed, of course. I think compared to the other sort of politicians, which are either...
But he's 65, he's not young.
Well, I think he's young in terms of politics, in political career. I think compared to other sort of politicians in Pakistan, I think either, I mean, because it's too young, even though with the sort of blessing of dynastic politics, or then too old, even in terms of, despite the fact that, I mean, the age is not so old. So indeed, we are having a new faces, but it seems that has already shown some experience in terms of governance, and also I think raise the hope and expectation, particularly from the younger generations, or the constituency, the voters who are looking for new faces, that in the hope that they will bring some changes, much needed changes to Pakistan.
Well, for electoral politics, it comes as no surprise that voters expect to have dramatic changes overnight with the leadership change. However, what are the most serious challenges on the agenda of the newly elected Prime Minister? I'm talking about the economy.
Well, obviously Pakistan is going through a phase where we need to regain or readdress the issues that we faced. How the economy needs to be fixed requires new and innovative solutions. So one of the things that was important in Imran Khan's campaign was the anti-corruption, which means that we need Pakistanis to have more faith in their system. That way we can have a better tax base. This is just one angle. And also, now we are moving into the second phase of CPEC. Why I talk about that is that the infrastructure development needs to lead to better generation of employment. We need to train people, skills development. And unless we are able to fill that infrastructure with skilled labor, we're not looking at a real economic corridor. We're looking at an infrastructure project. So Imran Khan does have that mindset of investing in the human capital of Pakistan. That was something he highlighted in his speech as well, and that is something which brought him a lot of the popularity that he has today by the youth of Pakistan. His vote bank doubled in this time. It had a lot to do with the attitude he had towards governing.
Roland, in your estimation, what are the most urgent problems on the agenda of the new Prime Minister? Corruption, poverty? What is it? Or fighting terrorism?
I think the most urgent issue or the top issue on the agenda, of course, he has to form a government, effective government that will be able to deliver. That is the most important thing. So far, I think it seems that there are positive signs, because at the very beginning, when the election result came out and the opposition parties all said they would like to, object that. Now I think the new session just opened, and it seems that the two, they are for some reasons, and they have already agreed. And then we are waiting for the next stage to form a government. That would, of course, take a lot of politics, horse trading and others. And then coming to the agenda of the government, I think Imran Khan made it very clear in his campaign that certainly he wants to have more equitable, more balanced, and of course continued fast growth, so that the economic challenges and development issues facing Pakistan can be addressed, even though I think that is an issue that has been there for many times. Anti-corruption campaign, certainly I think is important, but after the elections, I guess what the voters care most, and ultimately would be, the deliverables, the jobs, the welfare and education. And the security certainly is important. Without the stability, without the safe and secure environment, investors are not coming, and development would not happen. And so there are many issues.
What about the role and position of the Pakistani military, which is the most important power broker in your politics? Which side did it take?
This is
the PPP or Pakistan Muslim League or the Pakistani Justice Party?
I think I'll just intervene in that question, because I think that statement in itself is a bit, we have had a history, we've had a period where there was a lot of intervention of the army, the military, whatever. And maybe that's something that we learned from. Pakistan has learned a lot. We've had two governments complete their tenures. It is an inaccurate statement to say that we have the military as the big power broker. No, they're an institution. And it's really the political parties that are going to make the decisions. The politicians are the ones that are going to be the ultimate decision makers, and the rest would execute. So
the mere mention of a power broker actually implies a loaded message about history. For example, in the process of democratization elsewhere in the world, the military would always play the role of a stabilizing force during the transitional period when the country was either plunged into chaos due to corruption or economic failures. The military would always step in time. In the case of Thailand or in some of the Latin American countries. So what do you think of this important role that Professor Sammy Huntington describes as a stabilizing force?
Well, the military in Pakistan politics has always played a very important role. This is
you mean the era of Zia-ul Haq is totally over?
Either in the era of sort of a direct rule by the military, or civilian sort of government. I think this is a fact, and this is the reality we may have to face. But the differences, or the changes, I think so far, as Ms. Zhu has mentioned, that over the past decade, I think we have already have two successful, smooth transition, and this is going to be the third. And this tells a lot. It tells, I think, military as the a lot of people say the most effective and efficient institution. And by the way, the military always got another name called the establishment.
The establishment.
Whatever case, I think they are very effective and efficient and regarded as the most sort of discipline, of course, as a military always being an effective institution. And
do you think,
excuse
me, do you think the United States deserves credit for demanding the taking off of uniform from senior politicians like Musharraf? But he paid a heavy price for taking off his uniform, despite the establishment of the institution, like the military, taking a neutral position in your politics.
What I think is that whatever role another country can play in these matters can have a negative impact. Let's not forget the history of the United States also supporting the uniform. So maybe I wouldn't give the United States or any external forces so much credit as I would the system, where the people are slowly becoming more conscious about their political rights. I mean, the army and whatever, the whole structure understands what's the right balance to strike. So it's really been an evolution, and for now, we can see Pakistan as a very young democratic country.
One effective angle in examining the role of the military in a transitional democracy or an unstable democracy is whether you enjoy strong social stability, like the role of Pakistan. The role of Taliban. Pakistani Taliban engineered at least 3, if not 5, assassination attempts at Musharraf. He narrowly escaped from the attack on his motorcade after he ordered the attack on the Red Mosque in your country. So when the Pakistani Taliban was very active, supported by the madrasa school of Wahhabism or whatever then the military would always play an important role. Its role is highly respected by the majority of the people, electorate. So what is the current situation about the terrorism?
About the military's
extremism
role?
And terrorism, if they are still very active, then the military got to take the upper hand.
The military has played the most important role in terms of actually making it possible for the situation to improve. If you see the numbers, how Pakistan has tackled terrorism within the past few years, our National Action Plan has been very, very successful. And we see that when Shanghai Cooperation Organization countries also meet together and discuss strategies on how to counter these kinds of threats, Pakistan has had immense experience and also considerable success. So for sure, the military's expertise and also dedication is something the Pakistani people and the region should be indebted to.
Mm-hmm. What about, President Musharraf said famously that the Pakistani government paid a heavy price for taking side with the United States government in fighting terrorism. After 9/11, Richard Armitage said something very bold, very crazy. Bombing Pakistan back to the Stone Age if it refuses to cooperate with the United States. So what is the current position of the United States in the Pakistani foreign policy?
I think the current administration, the Trump administration's policy towards Pakistan, the only word I want to say is wrong. And it is going to be counterproductive in terms of the relationship and also in terms of the counterterrorism issue. I would like to go back to I think the role of the role of Pakistan in counterterrorism at the global scale. I think Pakistan has been the victim and also I think of terrorism, and as being at the front state of counterterrorism, has contributed to so much and has sacrificed so large. And I think the international community really have to give a due credit, and for that have to acknowledge that. And without that that acknowledgement, Pakistan will always feel very much, I think, frustrated, and it would very much counterproductive to push Pakistan to go beyond, its own security needs and also recognition of the due sort of contribution and indeed the sacrifice Pakistan has made. The military, the police, and also, of course, civilians also suffered so lot from the terrorist attack.
Let's go back to the issue of CPAC. Okay, this is the most important mega project in our Belt and Road Initiative since President Xi Jinping put out this brainchild 5 years ago or 6 years ago in Kazakhstan. Now, This newly elected Prime Minister was sitting in protest against the alleged protest of CPEC. And but after he took office, he said something differently.
Actually, do you want to...
Was he, sorry for saying this, I mean,
No.
some people would go as far as to call him a political opportunistic on the Pakistani-China relationship.
You know, there is a lot that's being said about Imran Khan's, that particular sit-in. Actually, since the beginning, his criticism was not directed towards CPEC or China. It was it was an anti-corruption criticism, and it was targeting the government that was in the center at that time. So it is not right to understand what his criticism was as something directly targeting CPEC. There is no political party, no province, no institution in Pakistan that says CPEC is bad. We just talk about how should it be done. And the other thing I'd like to highlight is one of the criticisms on CPEC was that perhaps more is going towards Punjab, which is already the most developed province. And that is not a wrong criticism to have.
Excuse me, what's special about Punjab?
Well, Punjab is the biggest province, and it is true that it is the most developed province. So it is easier. It has a more friendly business climate. So it is easier for investors or projects to go towards Punjab.
For a long time, observers from around the world seem to have been carried away by the nationalistic media fanfare of India about the future of Gwadar, a deepwater port along the coastline of the Indian Ocean. They say this will be transformed into a military base following Djibouti. What do you make of this kind of allegation from our common neighboring country of India?
Well, I think it's not just Gwadar that's been mentioned in this strategy. It's a whole theory that that's being propagated, and Gwadar is just one pearl in that theory.
And your angle, your take about the Gwadar's future?
There's always speculation that
speculation.
Yeah, about the Gwadar and other
ports. It's a conspiracy theory.
Well, I would say that it is a kind of a geopolitical sort of mindset. That I mean, it's a miscalculation about the China's there are, and I mean also the projects we're talking about, particularly these ports. I mean, so-called the pearl of string of pearl things, which I think many years ago. We, as scholars, we have been run into this debate. I mean, whether the Chinese is going to pursue that. As a matter of fact, I think we now know that the port project certainly is building together with these partner countries, but the benefits is going to enjoy and shared by not only the countries concerned, but all the region as a whole, because being better connected, provide better facilities for connectivities and helps development there. Gwadar project, it is more than the port itself. It is a kind of a development, it's a zone for industrial development. So we're not only talking about the port itself, rather we're talking about the project as a whole. Once the facilities are being improved and then the industrial park is being built, then I think advantage.
Here are two follow-up issues, excuse me. Here are two follow-up issues concerning the future of CPEC. One is the security of Chinese workers. Some of them were taken hostage or killed. Not only Chinese workers but tourists. Others might look at the string of pearl conspiracy theory. What do you make of the security of Chinese workers?
Well, let's not forget that at this point, tens of thousands, approximately 50,000 Chinese are working on CPEC projects in Pakistan. At the same time, we have had an improved security situation. However, despite the fact that even in this relatively improved security situation, so many Pakistanis have lost their lives, Chinese have not been targeted. This is not a coincidence. The proportion of Chinese being targeted is not that high. So Pakistan has invested a lot to secure the Chinese workers.
Yeah, I think the Chinese side. Yeah, right.
Many Pakistani friends say they would rather take the bullet to protect Chinese friends.
Exactly.
The Chinese side, I think, very much grateful for their efforts and the sacrifice the Pakistan people, government, military, and that have been made in protecting the Chinese, that ensure the safety and the security of the Chinese. And I have to say that even before the CPEC, the BRR, there have been sort of attacks and against the Chinese personnel. So I don't think it is good. It's right to connect these accidents, isolated accidents, and the Chinese. But of course, the security situation remains a concern, and I believe we need to look at the longer and the deeper sort of issues. I mean, root causes of the security situation. A lot of them related to the Balochistan. I mean, the some kind of separatist, if I can say, movements. Yeah, and a lot of them because I mean they have grievances against the particular group, and so. We only hope that with more and balanced and better development, I think the situation as a whole, the security will be improved, and well, for that, China and Pakistan will continue to work together.
The Pakistani military had several wars to try to eliminate the Taliban.
Yes.
The Taliban. But all of them came to no avail. Therefore, Imran Khan, the newly elected prime minister, said, why don't we negotiate with the Taliban, but especially moderates of the Taliban? Do you think this is going to be a way out?
Are we talking about the Afghan Taliban or the Pakistani Taliban?
Pakistani Taliban, not the Afghan.
Well, the thing is that when you're fighting a war within your country, it is also about radicalization of people that can be de-radicalized possibly. So it's hard to distinguish who's good and who's bad. We are really trying to look at a long-term strategy where people are not attracted towards this kind of an outlet. So the stability in Pakistan or the security situation is not in isolation of the region. We are looking at an Afghanistan which is also 40% ungoverned, a very porous border, 2,600-kilometer porous border with Afghanistan. We are looking at a country that is already embroiled on the western and eastern fronts. So I think that a person like Imran Khan is looking at what is feasible and what is possible and what is also sustainable.
Now, Imran Khan comes from a Pashtun tribal background. Will it make it easier for him to have peace talks with the Taliban in Pakistan? Because tribal politics comes along in parallel with constitutional politics in your country. That's the deep impression that I got from my sole visit to your country.
Well, I think certainly I think it would help. But the most important thing is that, as Ms. Zhu mentioned, that the strategy. We need an integrated strategy to deal with certainly the symptoms, that is the security issues, but more importantly the deep-rooted causes for that radicalization, for the frustrations, and I think the differences or the contradictions among different religious regions and so on and so forth. For that to happen, development can make a difference.
Do you think your position on the U.S. government matters a lot for the attitude of the Taliban in your country? Because as President Musharraf said, you have paid a heavy price for taking side with the United States. If you can alienate the United States, for example, President Donald Trump has ordered the cancellation of some of the training programs for your military. Does it mean that the Trump administration will alienate Islamabad, and the other way around, Islamabad will keep a distance from the White House? Therefore, Pakistani Taliban, we may say, hey, this is time for the improvement in the relationship with the government.
You know, we do distinguish a lot between the Taliban in Afghanistan and the Pakistani Taliban. In Pakistan, for now, we are saying that we are going to have operations, or we are going to target the extremist elements.
Thank you so much. Time is up. We'll keep our fingers crossed for the success of the newly elected Pakistani government despite the coalition nature. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.